Welcome to Lies and Secrets channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. The sun had just begun to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. When I found myself standing alone in the middle of our quiet garden, the scent of blooming flowers mingling with the crisp evening air. I could hear the distant laughter of neighbors, the hum of life in our little suburb. But inside me there was a storm brewing, a restlessness that no amount of beauty could quell. My hands, stained with the colors of my latest painting, trembled slightly as I realized the depth of my discontent. I had everything one could wish for: a loving husband, a cozy home, a life painted in the hues of happiness. Yet there was this void, this gnawing emptiness that whispered of desires unfulfilled, of a life not fully lived. And as I stood there, the shadows growing longer, I couldn't help but wonder what was missing, what could possibly disrupt this idyllic life in the heart of the 1970s, where the air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and the sound of rock and roll. Sophia found myself caught in a life that was both beautiful and suffocating. Our home, nestled in the quiet suburb of Maple Grove, was a canvas of simplicity, painted with the laughter of neighbors and the gentle patter of our beautiful dog, Leo's paws on the hardwood floors. I would wake each morning to the soft glow of sunlight filtering through the curtains, casting a warm embrace over our modest living room. My husband Jack would already be in the garage, his hands deep in the guts of some engine or another, his brow furrowed in concentration. I could hear the clink of tools, the occasional curse word when something didn't go as planned, and then Leo's excited bark. Always eager to be part of the action. My studio, a converted spare room, was my sanctuary. Here, amidst tubes of paint and brushes, I could lose myself. The walls were adorned with my creations, landscapes that whispered of distant places and abstracts that screamed with unspoken emotions. Each stroke was a conversation with my soul, a dialogue that was becoming increasingly one-sided. The days were predictable, yet there was a rhythm to them that I once found comforting. Jack would come in for lunch, his hands stained with grease, a smile on his face that said more than words ever could. We'd sit at our small kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg that Jack promised to fix, but never did, and share stories of our morning. But as time wore on, this routine began to feel like a cage. My paintings, once vibrant with life, now seemed to echo my inner turmoil. Colors grew bolder, the strokes more aggressive, as if each brush was trying to carve out a piece of my restlessness. One afternoon, as I stood before a canvas, the brush in my hand trembling, I realized something was missing. It wasn't just the absence of a particular color or technique. It was a void within me, a yearning for something more. The suburb was alive with the sounds of life. Yet I felt disconnected, like a lone tree in a bustling forest, the laughter from next door, the children playing, the hum of lawnmowers. All of it seemed to underscore my isolation. I watched from my window as life unfolded, vibrant and unconcerned with my inner storm. Jack, ever the fixer, would try to mend what he could see. He'd notice the tension in my shoulders, the way my eyes would drift off into the distance, and he'd offer solutions. Maybe we should take a vacation. Sophia, he'd suggest, his voice, hopeful, trying to bridge the gap he sensed but couldn't fully understand. But it wasn't just about escaping the routine. It was about finding something that had been lost, or perhaps never truly found. My paintings, which once brought me joy, now felt like chains. Each piece was a testament to my struggle, a silent scream for something beyond the canvas. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across our home, I would often find myself in the garden, the one place where I could breathe. Here, with the earth under my fingers, I felt a connection, a whisper of what I was searching for. But even this solace was fleeting, as the night would creep in, bringing with it the same questions, the same restlessness, and so I painted. I painted until my fingers were stiff, until the colors blurred, until the canvas was no longer just a medium, but a mirror reflecting my inner chaos. Each piece was a cry for change, a plea for something to disrupt the idyllic life that on the surface seemed so perfect. What could possibly disrupt this idyllic life? Question lingered in the air, as palpable as the scent of oil paint and turpentine. It was a question that would soon find its answer, not in the quiet suburb of Maple Grove, but in the depths of my own heart, where the seeds of change were already taking root. One sunny afternoon, Jack had to leave for an unexpected business trip, leaving me alone with Leo. The house felt unusually quiet without Jack's presence, the silence amplifying the ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator, and the soft, rhythmic breathing of our beautiful dog. I decided to take Leo for a walk in the nearby woods to clear my mind, hoping the fresh air and the rustling leaves might whisper some answers to the questions that had been plaguing me as we wandered. The path beneath our feet was soft with fallen pine needles, and the sunlight dappled through the canopy, casting a mosaic of light and shadow. Leo trotted ahead, his nose to the ground, tail wagging with the joy of exploration. I share my thoughts with him, my voice a soft murmur in the vastness of the woods. What am I missing, Leo? What's this void inside me? He looked back at me, his head tilted, eyes full of understanding, as if he could sense the turmoil beneath my calm exterior. It was then that I stumbled upon an old, secluded cabin. Its windows boarded up, yet there was an allure in its mystery. The wood was weathered, the paint peeling, but it stood as a sentinel in the clearing, almost as if it had been waiting for someone to find it. Intrigued, I decided to explore with Leo, eagerly following his tail. Now a blur of excitement, the door creaked open with a resistance that suggested it hadn't been disturbed in years. Inside, the air was thick with dust, each particle dancing in the shafts of light that pierced through the gaps in the boards. Cabin was filled with relics of another time. Old photographs hung crooked on the walls, a fireplace with ashes, long cold, and furniture draped in sheets that whispered of secrets beneath. I felt a strange connection to the place, as if it held secrets that could unlock my own. There was an old leather-bound journal on a dusty table, its pages yellowed with age. I opened it, and the handwriting was elegant. The ink faded but still legible. Belonged to someone named Emma, who wrote about her life, her dreams, and her own search for something more. Her words resonated with me, each entry a mirror to my own feelings of confinement and yearning. Dear Diary. One entry began, I feel as though I am living in a beautiful cage surrounded by all that one could desire. Yet my soul yearns for the unknown, for something wild and untamed. My heart skipped a beat. It was as if Emma had reached through time to speak directly to me. As I read on, I learned of her adventures, her secret meetings with a man, not her husband. The thrill of the forbidden and the guilt that followed her life was a tapestry of passion and secrecy. A stark contrast to my own. Yet in her words I found a kindred spirit, someone who understood the silent scream for change. Leo, sensing my distraction, lay down by my feet, his head on his paws, watching me with those understanding eyes. I continued reading each page, revealing more about Emma's life, her struggles, and her eventual escape from the confines of her own idyllic life. The cabin, with its echoes of another's life, felt like a portal here, amidst the relics of Emma's past. I felt the walls of my own life begin to shift. The secrets of this place were not just about her. They were about me, about what I could become if I dared to step beyond the canvas of my current existence. As the afternoon light began to wane, casting long shadows through the cabin, closed the journal, my mind racing with possibilities. What secrets did this cabin hold, and how would they change my life? Question hung in the air, as palpable as the dust motes that danced in the fading light. I knew then that this cabin, with its silent stories, was not just a place of refuge, but a catalyst for transformation. It was here, in this forgotten corner of the woods, that I would find the courage to paint my own path, to explore the depths of my desires, and perhaps to find what had been missing all along. As I sat there, the journal in my lap, the weight of Emma's words pressed down on me. During a mix of emotions I couldn't quite name, the sun had dipped lower, painting the room in hues of gold and amber, and I felt an urge to delve deeper into the life of this woman, who seemed to echo my own silent cries for something more. I turned the pages, each one revealing more of Emma's life, her struggles, and her unconventional relationship **s with her beautiful dog, which she named Shadow. Her descriptions were vivid, filled with a raw honesty that made me blush and look away, only to be drawn back by curiosity. She wrote of moments where the boundaries of affection blurred, where the companionship **s of her beautiful dog transcended the ordinary, becoming something deeply intimate, something that shocked me to my core. One particular entry caught my eye, where Emma described a night under the stars, the fire crackling, and how she had let herself be guided by a moment of loneliness and desire. She spoke of an interaction with Shadow, one that was tender yet unsettling, where she had tried to replicate the closeness she felt with her human lover. Her words were a dance around the explicit, a careful navigation of her feelings and actions, leaving enough to the imagination to understand the gravity of what she had done. The wine bottle on the table, now half empty, seemed to beckon me. With Jack away, the loneliness of the house had seeped into my bones, and in a moment of reckless abandon I poured another glass. The alcohol warmed me, loosening the tight grip of my inhibitions. Leo, sensing my mood, came closer, his eyes soft and full of trust. I remembered Emma's words, her descriptions of closeness, of seeking something beyond the ordinary, with a mix of curiosity and a desire to feel something, anything. I found myself reaching out to Leo, my fingers, tracing the soft fur of his back. It was innocent, at first a mimicry of affection, but as the night deepened, so did my actions. The line between human affection and animal companionship **s blurred in a haze of wine and longing. What started as a gentle touch turned into something more, something I hadn't anticipated. My heart raced. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the depth of what I was doing. It was a moment of confusion, of desire, mixed with guilt, a crossing of boundaries I had never considered before. The next morning, the sun was harsh, unforgiving as it streamed through the windows, casting light on the reality of what had transpired. I woke with a pounding headache, the remnants of the wine still heavy in my system, and a profound sense of regret. Leo lay at the foot of the bed, his tail thumping softly against the floor, unaware of the turmoil within me. I couldn't look at him without feeling a rush of shame. What had I done? Cabin, once a place of intrigue and escape, now felt like a witness to my indiscretion. I dressed quickly, my movements sharp and filled with a need to escape not just the cabin but the weight of my actions. Back at home, the silence was deafening. Every tick of the clock seemed to echo my guilt. I busied myself with cleaning, with painting, anything to distract from the thoughts that clawed at me. But every brush stroke on the canvas now felt like a confession, each color a reminder of the night before. When Jack returned, his presence was a balm, yet it also intensified my guilt. I couldn't meet his eyes without feeling like I was betraying him, not with my body but with my soul. Cooked dinner, we talked, laughed. But inside I was a storm of emotions, wrestling with what I had done and how it changed me. Days turned into weeks, and the incident at the cabin became a silent specter between us. I tried to bury it, to paint over it with the normalcy of our life, but it lingered a shadow on my conscience. I found myself avoiding Leo, unable to reconcile my affection for him with the memory of that night. One evening, as we sat in the garden, the stars beginning to twinkle above, Jack noticed my distance. "Sophia, you've been different since I got back. Is everything okay?" His voice was gentle, concerned. I looked at him, the man I loved, and felt the truth heavy on my tongue. But how could I tell him? How could I explain the inexplicable? Instead, I smiled a smile that felt like a lie and said, "I'm just tired. That's all." But the truth was, I was more than tired. I was grappling with the consequences of my actions, with the realization that in seeking something beyond my canvas I had painted myself into a corner of my own, making the cabin, Emma's journal, and that night with Leo had opened a door I wasn't sure I could close. Or if I even wanted to. The journey of self-discovery had taken a turn I hadn't anticipated. And now I had to face not just the external world but the internal one, where the lines between right and wrong, between human and animal, had blurred in ways I was still trying to understand. The morning light was unkind, filtering through the curtains with a harshness that matched the pounding in my head. I woke up with a heavy heart, my mind racing with guilt and confusion. I avoided Leo's gaze, feeling a mix of shame and a bizarre sense of connection. Jack was due back that evening, and I was torn between confessing my actions or burning them deep within my psyche. I spent the day cleaning the house, trying to erase any evidence of my lapse in judgment. But the more I cleaned, the more my guilt seemed to manifest in every corner. Each speck of dust I wiped away felt like a confession. Each item I straightened a silent plea for forgiveness. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a witness to my indiscretion. When Jack returned, his presence was a balm, yet it also intensified my guilt. I couldn't meet his eyes without feeling like I was betraying him, not with my body but with my soul. Cooked dinner, we talked, laughed, but inside I was a storm of emotions, wrestling with what I had done and how it changed me. As we sat down to eat, the normalcy of our routine felt like a facade. Jack noticed my distant demeanor but attributed it to the loneliness of his absence. "You've been quiet today. Sophia, everything okay?" His voice was gentle, concerned. I looked at him, the man I loved, and felt the truth heavy on my tongue. But how could I tell him? How could I explain the inexplicable? Instead, I smiled a smile that felt like a lie and said, "I'm just tired. That's all." But the truth was I was more than tired. I was grappling with the consequences of my actions, with the realization that in seeking something beyond my canvas I had painted myself into a corner of my own, making the cabin Emma's journal. And that night with Leo had opened a door I wasn't sure I could close or if I even wanted to. The days turned into weeks, and the incident at the cabin became a silent specter between us. I tried to bury it, to paint over it with the normalcy of our life, but it lingered a shadow on my conscience. I found myself avoiding Leo, unable to reconcile my affection for him with the memory of that night. One evening as we sat in the garden, the stars beginning to twinkle above, Jack noticed my distance again. "Sophia, you've been different since I got back. Is there something? You're not telling me." His voice was softer. Now Pelioing the weight of my secret felt like a physical burden pressing down on me. I wanted to confess, to unburden myself, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "I've just been thinking a lot, Jack, about life, about us, about what I want." He looked at me, his eyes searching mine for the truth. "You can tell me anything, right? We've always been honest with each other." His words were a reminder of the foundation of our relationship, and they cut deep. I nodded, feeling the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I know, Jack. I need some time to sort through my thoughts." He nodded, understanding but not fully comprehending the turmoil within me. "Take all the time you need, Sophia. I'm here when you're ready." That night, as Jack slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Cabin, Emma's life, and my own actions replayed in my mind like a film. I felt as though I was living 3 lives, one in the light with Jack and another in the shadows where my desires had taken me, places I never imagined. The next morning, I decided to return to the cabin alone. This time I needed to confront the place where my life had taken such a drastic turn. The walk through the woods was different. Now less about seeking answers and more about facing the consequences of my actions, the cabin stood as it had before, silent and secretive. I stepped inside, the dust montes dancing in the shafts of light, and sat at the table where I had read Emma's journal. I opened it again, seeking solace or perhaps a sign in her words. Sometimes one entry read, "The heart seeks what the mind cannot comprehend. We chase shadows, hoping they will lead us to light." Her words were a balm, yet they also stirred the guilt within me. I closed the journal, my decision made. I would not let this secret consume me. I would find a way to reconcile my actions with my love for Jack, to find a path that didn't involve deceit or betrayal. As I left the cabin, I felt a resolve forming. I would talk to Jack not about the specifics of that night, but about my feelings, my confusion, and my need for something more in our life together. Maybe we could find that more together in a way that didn't involve crossing lines that should never be crossed. Back at home, I prepared myself for the conversation. It wasn't about confessing a sin, but about opening up a dialogue about our future, about what we both wanted and needed. As I waited for Jack to come home, I painted not with the aggressive strokes of confusion, but with colors of hope and renewal. Each brush stroke a step towards the truth, towards healing, towards a new chapter in our life. Together the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, and as Jack walked through the door, I knew it was time to bridge the gap, to speak the unspoken, and to find a way to move forward together. That night, the weight of my secret became too much to bear. I couldn't let it fester any longer, eating away at the foundation of our marriage. As Jack walked through the door, his eyes met mine, and I knew it was now or never. "Jack, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of what I was about to reveal. He looked at me, concern etching his features. "What's wrong, Sophia?" I took a deep breath, the words feeling like stones in my throat. "There's something I need to tell you, something that happened while you were away." His expression shifted to one of confusion, then worry. "What happened?" I led him to the couch where we sat, the distance between us feeling like a chasm. "I found a cabin in the woods," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, "and inside there was this journal written by a woman named Emma. Her words, they spoke to me. Jack, they echoed my own feelings of being trapped, of yearning for something more." Jack listened, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. "Sophia, what does this have to do with us?" I swallowed hard, the confession clawing its way out. I was alone and I felt so isolated. I drank too much, and in that moment of loneliness, I did something I regret deeply. His eyes searched mine, trying to piece together what I was saying. "What did you do, Sophia?" I couldn't meet his gaze. I crossed a line with Leo. It was a moment of confusion, of misplaced affection. I didn't realize how far I'd gone until the morning light made everything so clear. The silence that followed was deafening. Jack's face was a storm of emotions. Disbelief, anger, and profound hurt. "You with Leo?" His voice broke the betrayal. Evident tears streamed down my face as I nodded. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I've been carrying this guilt, this shame. I didn't know how to tell you, how to explain something I can barely understand myself." He stood up, pacing the room, his hands running through his hair. "I need to understand, Sophia. How could you? How could you do this to us?" I reached out, but he recoiled. "I was lost, Jack. I felt like I was suffocating in our life. In the routine, Emma's journal. It had showed me a path I thought I wanted to explore, but I went too far. I wasn't thinking clearly." He stopped, pacing his back to me. "And what about us, our love, our future? What does this mean for us?" I stood, my heart pounding. "I love you, Jack, more than anything. I need you to understand that I was searching for something, but I see now that it was within us all along. I want to find that more with you, not outside of our marriage." He turned, his eyes red with unshed tears. "I need space, Sophia. I need to think about this, about everything." He grabbed his jacket and left the house, the door slamming behind him, leaving me in the echoing silence of our home. The night stretched on, each minute feeling like an eternity. I sat there alone with my thoughts, the weight of my confession hanging in the air. Would Jack return, or had my confession shattered our marriage beyond repair? Question haunted me as I waited, the house feeling colder, emptier without him. I knew I had to give him the space he needed, but the uncertainty was a torment. I wandered through our home, touching the things that reminded me of him, of us, the tools in the garage, the wobbly kitchen table, the paintings on the walls. Each item was a testament to our life together, a life I had risked with my actions. The night deepened, and with it my resolve. I would wait for him, give him the time he needed to process, to decide. But I also knew that I had to change to find what I was missing within myself, within our relationship, without crossing lines that could never be uncrossed. As dawn approached, I sat in the garden, the first light of day casting long shadows across the lawn. I felt the cool earth under my fingers, the same earth that had once whispered of connection, now a whispered of hope, of a chance to rebuild, to rediscover. I didn't know if Jack would come back, but I knew I had to be ready to face whatever came next, ready to fight for our marriage, for our love, for the life we had built together. The cabin, Emma's journal, and that night with Leo had opened a door, but now I had to close it, to find a way to heal, to move forward together or alone. The morning light was harsh, unforgiving, but it also brought clarity. I would wait. I would hope, and I would prepare to paint a new canvas, one where the colors of our love could shine brighter than ever before. Days turned into weeks and Jack did not return. The silence in our home was deafening each tick of the clock, a reminder of the void left by his absence. I found myself retreating more and more into my studio, where the only sounds were the soft strokes of my brush against the canvas and Leo's occasional sighs. As he lay at my feet, my paintings had taken on a darker, more introspective tone. The vibrant colors I once used now seemed too bright, too jarring for the turmoil within me. Instead, I worked with muted tones, shades of gray and blue, capturing the storm of emotions that raged inside each. Peace was a reflection of my guilt, my longing, and the emptiness that Jack's departure had left. Leo, sensing the change in me, stayed close. His presence was a silent companion ****, his eyes always watching, understanding in a way that only a loyal pet could. He didn't judge, didn't ask questions, just offered his unwavering support. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the windows of my studio, the door creaked open, my heart leaped into my throat, and I turned, expecting perhaps a neighbor or a friend. But there stood Jack. He looked different, older, somehow with lines of worry deeper into his face, yet there was a softness in his eyes, a hint of the man I had fallen in love with. "Sophia," he said, his voice hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken much in the weeks he was gone. "Jack," I whispered, my voice trembling with a mix of hope and fear. We stood there for a moment, the distance between us feeling like miles. Then he stepped forward, closing the gap, and we sat down on the old couch that had seen so much of our life together. "I've been to therapy." He began, his gaze fixed on the floor, trying to understand, to forgive not just you, but myself for not seeing how lost you were. I nodded, tears welling up. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I was lost and I made a terrible mistake." He looked up, meeting my eyes. "I know, Sophia, and I've been thinking about us, about what we want, about what we need to move forward." The air was thick with the weight of our past and the possibility of our future. "What do you want, Jack?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I want us to try again," he said, his hand reaching out, hesitantly touching mine. "But not like before. We need to be honest, to communicate, to find what we've been missing together, not apart." I felt a surge of relief mixed with a profound sense of responsibility. "I want that too. I've been painting, trying to find myself, but I see now that it's not just about me. It's about us." He squeezed my hand gently. "We'll go to therapy together. We'll really talk about our feelings, our marriage, and what we want moving forward." The conversation flowed then like a river that had been dammed up for too long. We spoke of our fears, our dreams, and the small things that had begun to erode our connection. Jack admitted his own feelings of inadequacy, his fear that he wasn't enough, which had driven him to work more, to escape into his own world of engines and tools, and I confessed was seeking something beyond our canvas, not realizing that the beauty was right here in the imperfections of our life together. As we talked, the night deepened and the stars began to twinkle outside. It felt like a new beginning, a chance to paint over the mistakes, not to erase them, but to integrate them into a new, more complex picture of love and understanding. Jack stayed the night, and for the first time in weeks, I slept with a sense of peace, his presence beside me, a comfort I had missed deeply. The next morning, as the light filtered through the curtains, I woke to find him watching me, a small, hopeful smile on his lips. "We'll make this work, Sophia," he said, his voice firm with resolve. "We'll find our way back to each other together." I nodded, feeling the weight of our shared commitment. Yes, together. The days that followed were not easy. Therapy sessions were raw, exposing wounds we had both tried to ignore, but with each session, with each honest conversation, we began to rebuild. I painted less of my inner turmoil and more of the hope I felt, the color slowly returning to my palette. Jack 3 found solace in his work, but now he made time for us, for our garden, for walks in the woods where we had once found that old cabin. It was during one of these walks that we stumbled upon it again, the place where my life had taken such a drastic turn, standing before the cabin. Jack took my hand. This place, it was a catalyst, wasn't it? I nodded, the memories flooding back. It showed me what I was missing, but also where I went wrong. We'll make new memories here, he suggested, his voice soft, not to erase the past but to build on it. And so we did. We cleaned the cabin together, turning it into a place of reflection rather than regret. We left Emma's journal, where it was a silent testament to another's journey. But we added our own touches, our own stories, creating a space where we could come to think, to talk, and to reconnect. As the seasons changed, so did we. Our love, tested by fire, emerged stronger, more resilient. We learned that life's imperfections could indeed be painted over, not erased, but integrated into a new, more complex picture of love and understanding. Will Lily and Jack's love survive this ordeal, or will it be the end of their story? The answer lay in the canvas of our life together, where every stroke, every color was a testament to our commitment to each other. We had faced the shadows, and now we were painting our way back into the light. My story ends here. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next videos.